the inspiration. Unenlightened, Sirius XM.
How you feeling? How are you? Everything all right? I'm feeling it in my knees this morning.
So, but it's just one of those things. I told Lucas, I think you need to take him to the yard and shoot. It'll save you a lot of money. He hadn't done it yet, but one day he may take him. Because you're all springy too with snow on the ground.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Morning.
Nice to see everybody out this morning for that beautiful day we had yesterday. You know the saddest part about that storm yesterday? That's probably the last one we'll have this year.
Not necessarily.
What is wrong with you all? So negative, so much negativity.
It don't look like springing forward, does it? It's supposed to be.
No, and that kind of took me by surprise because I didn't know that was this early in the year. So started hearing it on the news last night. I said, already? Anyway, nice to see everybody out today. Welcome to Sunday School. Let's go ahead and go to prayer this morning before we get into the lesson. And I'll start on this side. Anybody have a spoken prayer request? All right, Steve. Ruby?
My family, I'm waiting for this, but also different. Others who just can't find this. Brandon will get good results and, from my family, remember John Richmond? John Richmond had to have, surgery the other day, and anyway, he's on his bladder, and he's waiting for results. I'm praying that it's not cancer. Just remember him.
Anybody else on this side? Jamie?
I went to church to restore memory and all my family, and my friend Paulette needs her hips out. She really needs a hip replacement, and they won't do it yet. She's in very bad pain, so remember her and her mother. She has problems. She's 85, Paulette's 67, and she's looking after her, so remember her. Her name's Helen. And I had a friend, Henry and Cheryl, remember them, they both have cancer. And remember Julia, and remember Sue, and remember Donna.
All right. All right, how about on this side? Anybody have a spoken prayer request?
Remember Charlie, he's been limping, he's been walking cane, and Aaron, he's doing better. Don said he has a flu, he's gotten over. Let's see, oh yeah, Walt Bells, he has to take all these treatments he's got prostate cancer. You remember him in prayer.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll throw my parents to someone.
Okay.
Continue to remember me and my family, remember my mother, my two brothers, continue to remember Taylor Gordon, continue to remember me this morning.
All right. Jamie?
Remember Eddie and Sandy.
All right. Anyone else anywhere with a spoken request?
Mark, I got a brother in South Carolina and nieces and nephews down in Virginia and Wyoming County.
All right. Sure, everyone has unspoken prayer requests. So stand if you would, please. Lots of prayer requests this morning. Let's try to remember those as we go to prayer. And as always, let's remember to invite God into our service. That's what we're here for. Should never lose sight of that. Steve, will you lead us, please? start on the lesson, I'll also ask if anyone has read a verse or a passage of scripture over the last week you'd like to share.
I'm here.
All right, Bruce.
All right. This is reading in 1 Samuel. I'm going to start, this is chapter, 1 Samuel, chapter 28. 1 Samuel, chapter 28, verses 3 through 25. Now Samuel was dead, and all of Israel had laminated him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly troubled. When Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dream, nor by Urim, nor by prophet. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit in Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on another raiment, and went, and the two men with him, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, Pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, and how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die. And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then the woman whom Saul shall bring up unto thee. And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me, for thou art Saul? And the king said unto her, Be not afraid for what thou sawest thou. And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up and is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel. And he stopped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me, and answers not me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I called unto thee, that thou mayest make known to me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become the enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spoke by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even unto David. Now I was told years ago that Samuel disobeyed, or Saul did, and went to that witch when God told him not to.
Appreciate that, Bruce. Anybody else?
Well, Mark, I got a scripture I'd like to read.
All right.
You know, this is a very trying times. And I look for strength when I read. And this scripture here just seemed to fit the times. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12 through 17. Says, Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned, and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith which is in Christ Jesus. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works.
Thank you, Ronnie. Somebody else? Appreciate you guys sharing those with us. All right, we'll go ahead and get into the Sunday school lesson. The title of it this morning is A Dysfunctional Family. We hear that a lot, don't we? Dysfunctional family. People use, and I'm from a dysfunctional family, they're from a dysfunctional family. What does that mean to any of you guys? Somebody's from a dysfunctional family?
Messed up.
Okay, anybody else? John, you look like you were getting ready to say something. No.
No order or,
You know, we use that a lot. We use that phrase all the time. And we basically use it to describe any family that's not like ours. You ever notice that? You know, we'll talk about somebody being from a dysfunctional family, or maybe we're unhappy with our family, and we say, well, it must be dysfunctional. We use it to describe broken families, blended families, families that are just different, right? All the time. So in order to make sure that I understand this as it applies to our lesson, I looked it up. What is the official? Of course, you know, you can't really look up an official definition of anything anymore, because if you go on the internet, which is, I mean, who owns encyclopedias and dictionaries anymore? You go on and you find lots of different definitions. So I found one that I thought was probably more appropriate for our lesson, and it sort of jived with multiple others, and I'm going to read this. A family in which conflict, misbehavior, and often child neglect or abuse on the part of individual parents occur continuously and regularly, leading other members to accommodate such actions. Primarily a result of two adults, one typically abusive and the other codependent. And in some cases, the kids grow up thinking this is normal and then emulate what they've learned from mommy and daddy, right? So we don't quite use dysfunctional family like it is defined. Matter of fact, most definitions that I read attributed, not completely, but a great deal to some kind of substance abuse or addiction, whether alcoholism, drug abuse, something that caused one parent to be abusive or neglectful, the other parent codependent, just falling right in, and so forth. So that becomes their normal, whatever that is. Anybody know what normal is? We could talk about that one all day. We could talk about that one all day, right? Normal? All right. Anyway, so today's lesson is about a family that is being described as dysfunctional. Now, I don't know if they really meet the criteria for being dysfunctional, but what Ronnie said earlier, his first definition, messed up, they are, okay? And this is Isaac, Rebekah, Esau, and Jacob. They're kind of a messed up family, are they not? Now, whether they're dysfunctional or not, would you describe, and I'm assuming most people in here have at least read at least once or twice in their life or heard the story of Isaac and Rebekah and Esau and Jacob. Would you describe them as a normal family? They had a lot of issues, didn't they? From what we can tell and what we're told from early in the relationship between Isaac and Rebekah, they were a loving couple. They seemed to be in love with each other. They seemed to be committed to one another. But when they had children, things kind of took a little turn. Now, I'm not saying they quit loving each other, but their relationship changed, the way they did things. So they had twins. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole story of Esau and Jacob, but you know, these guys were in conflict with one another from the womb, right? You know, we're told that in the Bible, that even in the womb, these two were scrappers. But mom and dad had a real serious issue once the twins were born. They each had a favorite. Isaac favored the firstborn, Esau, man of the woods, man of the field, a manly man, right? An outdoor kind of guy. And Rebekah favored Jacob. Now it's funny, Jacob is described as just being a plain man dwelling in tents. So, you know, he was more of an indoorsy kind of guy, apparently. So dad favored Esau, Rebekah favored Jacob. And this favoritism that they had, which I think is where the writers of this lesson came up with the dysfunctional part, because the favoritism causes problems, does it not?
Yes.
You know, and I actually had this written at the end of my notes, I'm gonna say it right now. I don't know if Luke had sent it to me or I had sent it to Luke years ago, because, you know, I always stand up here and make stupid comments about how I feel about children. I think Luke had sent it to me, and it said something to the effect, it was one of these memes you see on the internet. My kids keep accusing me of having a favorite, which is ridiculous because I really don't like any of them. I think he thought that fit me or something, I don't know, but I did not take offense at it. But anyway, it causes problems. This favoritism caused some serious problems in these days, you know, with Isaac and Rebekah. Now, we don't see that they actually had conflict with one another, but they certainly helped perpetuate the conflict between the two boys, right? So, Isaac was obviously proud of his firstborn, as dads are, you know, firstborn son, here he is, and he's intended to bestow his birthright, which means, you know, make him the patriarch of the family. You're the leader of the family. And he planned to give his blessing to Esau. Now, blessing is kind of a complicated thing as far as, you know, this dad giving his blessing to his son. Basically, it was promising him everything. You know, you're the leader of the family and you have everything. That's kind of the short version of what both those are. That wasn't Rebekah's plans though, was it? Rebekah had other plans for her favorite, and she set about a little plan to deceive her husband so that her favorite son would receive these blessings. All right. So we can also see that Jacob took after his mother. You know, she's kind of deceitful at this point. Now, I don't know, or we don't see where she had deceit prior to this, but at this point she came up with a plan to deceive her husband, to make sure that her favorite son got the lion's share of, you know, whatever was going to be left behind. And Jacob apparently inherited or learned, again, we go back to that definition of a dysfunctional family. If the kid grows up and that's his norm, then that becomes normal for the kid. So here Rebekah is deceitful. Guess what? Jacob, her favorite, turned out to be deceitful as well. He learned that from mom. So up to the point of our text in our lesson this morning, a couple of big things have happened. Esau, being a man of the woods, you know, he goes out, he hunts, and he works out, he comes back in the house. He's hungry. And I'm not going to go over all the details again. Jacob's got food. Esau, oh, I'm starving to death. Give me something to eat, you know. He listened to his belly. Jacob's like, yeah, I'll feed you. Give me the birthright. And apparently Esau, either not taking him seriously or being so hungry that sounded like a great deal, agreed and told Jacob that he could have his birthright. He'll be the one that's going to be the successor, the heir to Dad's fame and fortune. And then, after that happened, Jacob and Rebekah tricked Isaac into giving his blessing to Jacob after this is all over. And that was a heck of a story because, as some of you may have read, you know, Esau's out supposedly hunting for deer, venison, to bring home to Dad. Dad's older now. And Mom's like, quick, while your brother's gone, it's going to take him a little while. Let's get some goats. We'll prepare it. I'll spice it up. Dad's going to think he's eating, because Dad doesn't have very good eyesight either at this point. He's old and he's got bad eyes, Isaac. And so they decide to trick him. They prepare the meal out of goat, and she wants Jacob to serve his dad. So Esau's hairy and all this stuff, and Dad's going to know it's not him, and I'm not going to smell like him because he smells like outside, and I'm a plain guy, whatever. So they decide to dress him up in some goat skin and, you know, make it look like he's got hair on him, and it's going to smell, because it's outdoorsy kind of smell. They even get some of Esau's clothes and put on him. Well, they do indeed trick Isaac into thinking that it's Esau, and, oh, my son, I'm giving you my blessing. Well, It wasn't Esau he gave his blessing to, it was Jacob. So basically Esau has gone from the one who should have inherited everything as firstborn son and become the leader of the family to now he's got nothing, right? Nothing's going to be done. So all of this has been given to Jacob, which would, by tradition, would have all gone to Esau through deceit. All right? This was all done through deceit. They took advantage of him. They took advantage of his age. They took advantage of his, his poor vision and so forth. And they did this to satisfy their own desires, especially Rebekah. Now, out of all of this group, if I had to think that somebody was dysfunctional, it would probably be Rebekah out of this whole thing. She sort of perpetuated this plan, got it kind of going. Jacob was doing what he was taught. We can't help but think that she's as they said, programmed all of his buttons and then pushed him and got him going. All right, so all of this is kind of a background about where the lesson starts today. So we'll read through this and then we'll talk about the verses that we have this morning, okay? This is from Genesis chapter 27, and it reads from verse 34 up to 45. I'll read the first verse, you guys read after me. It says, "And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father.
And he said, Thy brother came with civility, and hath taken away thy blessing.
And he said, Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me?
And Isaac answered and said to Esau, Behold, I have made the Lord, and all bread have I given to his servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shalt thou now do to thee, my son?
And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept.
And Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, thy son shall be fattened for the earth, and the dew that is given from above.
And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessings bringing his father's blessing. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob.
And these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee.
Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise, lead out to the wall of my brother to Haran,
And tarry with him a few days, until thy brother's fury turn away.
until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget as thou hast done with him. Then I will send him to fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also that he loved him one day?
Amen. All right. So again, this has happened where we pick up this morning. Our reading picks up right after Isaac giving Jacob his blessing. Once he did that, Jacob immediately went out. Esau must have been nearing the house and comes back in, and he's fully prepared to feed his father the venison and all this stuff, and he knows that he's about to receive, or thinks he's about to receive, his father's blessing. To both of their surprise, because Isaac still didn't know what had really happened at this point, to their surprise they realized that Jacob had tricked his father, and now in addition to the birthright, he also received his father's blessing. Esau's not happy, right? He wouldn't be. Nobody would be. If this was something you expected, something that was set by tradition, that you sort of had in mind, this is the way things are going to go. We don't like our plans upset at all, do we? But in this case, I think Esau was probably justified in being upset that all this had happened. Not with his father, because we don't see that he's upset with his father. I don't think he realizes that his mother is behind this, or has a great part of this, but he's very upset with his brother Jacob. So I'm taking kind of some of these first two verses here together, 34 and 35. So Esau pleads with his father to bless him also. Father, you gave him your blessing. Don't you have a blessing for me? Can you not bless me also? And Isaac says that, his tricky brother has taken away his blessings. There aren't any more. There's nothing. And he says, that your brother came with subtlety and has taken away that blessing. There are no blessings to give. Now, I'm not exactly sure of what all that meant back in that time that he gave his blessing. I know that when he gave his birthright, then he became the heir. I take from what I read from this that receiving the blessing means that all the physical property, all of these, everything that there was, the estate, we'll call it, now belongs to Jacob. And there's nothing left for Esau. It's all been given. It would have all been given to Esau. Now, he'd have been perfectly happy with that, wouldn't he? To get all that. He didn't think about splitting anything with his brother, sharing with his brother, whatever. He was expecting his birthright. He was expecting his blessing, and now he's lost all of it. There's none. In verse 36, he says, and he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? For that he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? So Esau points out here that his brother was properly named. When we read, especially the Old Testament, the name of a person had a definition that described some characteristic trait about them, something about, that person. So he was named Jacob. Does anybody know what Jacob means? Deceiver. And some of the sources I call it supplanter, which is what he uses here. The word he uses, he said, he has supplanted me twice. Which, okay, I don't know what Jacob means. How am I supposed to know what supplant means? Anybody know what supplant means?
I guess that means like pre-planning or something, I don't know.
Very close, yeah.
And I just got to thinking also, wasn't Jacob the one that seen the ladder that went up into heaven?
Yeah, later on down the road, that's right.
What I was thinking. I was thinking all these things in my head.
Right. So a supplanter is someone or something that takes the place of another through force, scheming, or strategy. Well, Jacob has certainly done that, has he not? He has taken the place of his brother over his birthright. He has taken place of his brother by receiving the blessing. So when Jacob says that, when Esau says that my brother has supplanted me twice, that's what he's talking about. Those 2 big events where he has received by deceit or taking the place of, he has received those 2 things. It's just my random brain. Anybody watch the Marvel Avengers and all that stuff? Anybody fans of that stuff? I am. Does it sound like Loki? Loki and Thor here, so the 2 brothers. Loki was the deceiver, same kind of thing. And, and of course that was all based on mythology from Norse mythology. But anyway, that kind of personality trait, it apparently wasn't anything new. But anyway, he says this, and after his brother has supplanted him twice, taken his place, got his blessings, got his inheritance, Esau says, this is twice he's done this. Haven't you reserved any blessing for me? Well, obviously Isaac thought he was blessing Esau when he gave the blessing. And Isaac tells him, he says, basically, son, I'm sorry, but I have made him lord over you. You're now his servant. Talk about adding insult to injury, right? So not only are you not going to get this, you've been tricked by your brother, and you're going to be his servant. Well, that did not set well right? The next few verses, he said, and I'm going to read these. It basically just tells him there's nothing else to give him. So in 38, 39, and 40, I'll read those together. Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. All right, so Esau at this point you can see him escalating as he goes through this, and he keeps thinking about this and hashing over what his brother has done. Again, he doesn't relate this to his mother being involved in any of this. This is all that guy Jacob's fault. And, he's getting upset, more and more upset. He's raising his voice. He's openly crying out about it. Dad, don't you even have one more blessing? Just all of it. He's just terribly upset. Isaac is very matter of fact about it. He tells him, basically, there's nothing we can do at this point. But he kind of gives him some idea of how his life is going to be after this, what's going to happen. And he tells him that he's going to live off the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. Anybody have any idea what that might indicate?
He wasn't gonna have that.
Okay. That's not quite how I read it, but okay.
Fatness, I got thinking about meat and dew of the earth. That's food and water. I mean, dew is water, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of thinking along. Am I right or wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think it means he's going to live off the land. He's telling Esau, you're going to live off the land. This is your, I don't want to say his fate, his lot in life. This is the life that you're going to have. You're going to live off the land. You're going to sleep under the stars. That's your life. You're not going to get all these blessings, but you're going to do this. And he also tells him he's going to live by the sword. What would that indicate?
By his own strength.
Okay.
Have to live like a man.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to have some struggles. He's going to be one of those that's going to be involved in violence. It's one of those, trying to think of a cliche we could use for that, but it's one of those that only the strongest survive. He's going to be out there. He's going to be living on his own. Because he's his brother's servant now, but he's going to be the outdoorsy guy, totally self-reliant. He's going to be involved in battles and all of this stuff. And we know that's true in retrospect. We see what happens. He is the beginning or the lead of the Edomites, that's what comes to pass. And they were kind of a warring nation. They were pretty rugged bunch of guys. But he's telling Esau, that's the life that you're going to have. And Esau, obviously that's not what he was expecting. Even when you look at his description of how he was born and the description of Jacob, you sort of got the impression, he was the ruddy appearance, the rusty brown guy and hairy and live out in the woods and hunt and fish and camp out and all that stuff. That's going to be his life, and that's what Isaac is telling him. He tells him he's going to live by the sword, and he's going to serve his brother for a while. Now, Esau doesn't know how long that's going to be. We don't know how long that's going to be, but he talks about until it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion. At some point down the road, the Edomites conquer Jacob's side, Israel. Okay, and it's a conflict later on. I think it actually happens a couple of times. And when we read the Bible, we want to take so many of the things. When we talk about this is going to happen, that's going to happen, we just assume it's going to happen. Okay, in his lifetime, that's going to happen. But that's not necessarily the case. When we look at the Old Testament writings, especially, something that says it's like even the promise to Abraham. Your seed is going to go on forever. more numerous than the stars in the sky, the grains of sand on the ground. Well, that didn't happen overnight, did it? Abraham just barely saw Isaac born, right? So all of these things don't happen overnight. So, and that didn't either. That was from a conflict, all because these two brothers, the way they were brought up, the way they were pitted against each other by their parents, and then later on down the road, that caused conflict forever for these guys, which I'm sure they assumed was just normal behavior at that time, because that's the way they were brought up. But at some point, he tells Esau that you will have dominion over your brother and shall break his yoke from off thy neck. So Jacob will no longer be over top of Esau, because Esau's clan, the Edomites, will at some point overtake, I'll call him Israel at this time. All right? Any comments at this point? I know this is more like a history lesson than anything. All right, so I'll read verse 41. He says, excuse me, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. Well, Jacob and his mother, Rebekah, weren't the only ones capable of sitting back and planning a scheme to change things, right? So think about this. All of your life dreams, all of your ambitions, and I don't know how old they are at this point, the two twins, but all of your expectations and your expectations have just crashed, right? Total crash. Everything that you thought was the way things were going to be, all because of that pesky little brother. It's always the young siblings' fault. Have you ever noticed? So, but because of all this, Esau has got to the point where the way the Bible said, he hates him. That's not the way brothers and sisters are supposed to be, right? There should not be hatred. Shouldn't be hatred anywhere, but especially in a family. And again, we're describing or talking about this dysfunctional family. But because of all this trickery on the part of Jacob and on the part of his wife, his mother, Esau's got to the point where he hates Jacob. So he starts scheming also. And he's got a pretty simple plan. He knows that his dad is older. He doesn't have long to live. And he's going to wait till his father passes, goes through the period of mourning, and quite simply, he's going to kill his brother. So he'll have it all back, right? Seems like a simple plan. It's amazing what kind of feelings can be harbored in somebody by the actions. Again, you have to blame, just like our original definition, the dysfunctional part in a family starts with mom and dad. Mom and dad could have prevented all this. Now, we have to assume, as we read this story, God's hand is certainly, and I don't think anything happened that God didn't know was going to happen the way God wanted it to happen. However, the human reactions of these two guys and all of the things that went behind this are not right. God doesn't cause hate. God does not like hatred. God certainly doesn't want two brothers plotting on killing one another or anybody. But he knows Dad doesn't have long to live, and when he passes, Esau's going to fix his problem. That's what he's got planned. In verse 42, he says, and these words of Esau, and let's just read, I think, all the rest of these verses. Starting at 42, it says, and these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. That seems like such a harsh way to take comfort in your mourning, doesn't it? You know what? I'm okay with this. I'm going through this mourning period over Dad. I'm taking my comfort in the fact that I'm going to kill my brother as soon as Dad is dead. My mom always used to say when somebody had something going on up here, they had snakes. I can imagine Esau had snakes at this point. He's got stuff going on that should not be going on. He's plotting on killing his brother, and he's taking comfort from the fact that he's going to kill his brother. Not right. Now therefore, go ahead, Bruce.
You know, you was talking about snakes up here, and I got to thinking, where it refers to the devil as being the old serpent, that's a snake. I got to thinking about where it says if the devil is the father of all lies, and he was a murderer from the very beginning. And I got to thinking all that stuff in my head when you mentioned snakes.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so it goes on in verse 43, it says, Now therefore, my son, obey my voice and arise. Flee thee to Laban, my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? So, kind-hearted mother here, she doesn't want to lose both of her sons. After kind of stirring all this up, mom hears about what Esau's going to do, what he's planning. So, you know, in an effort to protect her son, and I guess in a way she's trying to protect both of them, is what she's saying here in that last verse. But in order to kind of let things settle down, she says, I'm going to send you to my brother's house. You need to stay there for a few days until your brother's anger is calmed down. You think a few days would be enough? No, I mean, Esau's ready to kill him. Once a fuse like that is lit, it's hard to defuse. So anyway, so she's apparently not going to serve on the PTA. She's not going to be Mother of the Year. Not a soccer mom at all. She's got problem. That's where the snake started, probably. But anyway, she thinks that, Jacob's going to be safe until Esau settles down and everything's going to be okay. So anyway, that's where our text ends for today. And I have not read ahead, but maybe Brother Tim will wrap up the story of these two next week. I don't know. But, the problem with, as I read this, when I was always told, and you guys have probably heard all your lives too, it's like telling a lie. So when you tell a lie and you get caught, and now you get called out on it, what's our reaction to get through this? First thing you do? Tell another lie. And then you got to tell more, and you got to tell more, and you got to tell more. Because now you can't go back, right? Because you started it, you said it was true, and now how can I... Anybody ever get caught up in that and try that routine? Boy, I can remember I did one time. I was supposed to be, I had been working, it was my first job, real job, driving a car, going to work by myself. Bag boy at a grocery store, down at Wilbur's on Valley Drive. I was a bag boy there, and started flirting with a little cashier there, and decided after I got off work at 11, now keep in mind I'm 16, she's 28 and divorced, and it'll be fine for us to go for a ride in the car after work. So I get home late. All the lights are on in the house. Oh, this is weird. Idiot. So I walk in, Mom and Dad sitting there. Hey, where you been? Oh, I had to work late. First lie. Oh, that's funny. I drove down by there, I didn't see your car. Oh, well, I had it parked around the side. Oh, well, that's funny. I walked in and looked at your time card and saw where you clocked out at 11. Oops. Once you start, you can't undo that. And that's what happened with these guys. Once you start to gain something by deceit. Now, in this case, they're showing this in this dysfunctional family that we're looking at. But it could apply to anything that we do in life. If we're deceitful to gain something like this, and you've started down that path, you're on that path. It's hard to go back. And that's where these two really got into trouble with Jacob and Esau. But you have to ask yourself, was it their fault? You have to look and say, first Mom and Dad picked favorites. And they were very obvious about the favorites. And then Mom gets involved in, I can help you trick Dad into getting this stuff. Nobody's going to win that. Again, I don't know about the dysfunctional, if they actually qualify for that definition as we know it today.
I'm not sure, you was talking about going down that path of telling, I believe in my heart, that Jesus can turn that path around.
Sure he can.
You start speaking the truth little by little, and then it gets easier as it goes along to tell the truth.
Yeah,
You just begin little by little building on the Word of God.
yeah.
It's like the grain of mustard seed. It's the least of all seeds. And when it grows, it gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
You start out telling the truth gradually, little by little. That's the way I perceive all this.
Right. Well, the actions of both of the parents here set a path that did not end well for the brothers. I mean, Jacob, I guess everything worked out well for him, but Esau, and he had his problems as well. But it started them both on kind of a strange path for two brothers to be on. All right.